So we're hearing more and more about, yes, large language models, but the next step is going to be large action models, where, an AI
Okay.
is going to be able to tell you exactly what you need to do to get to a certain goal. And that AI model could even have its own goals, right? And it will know how to reach those goals, right? So that can be a bit scary if there is no safeguards in place.
Well, hello, my fellow marineros, pirates, tech practitioners, technologists, hiring managers, and co-founders everywhere. And welcome to this new installment of the Captain's Cabin. And today I have a very special guest with me. I have Jean-Francois Cloutier, who's currently Chief Technology Officer at Stamped, right? And lo and behold, he comes from well, you have a pilot license, right? Yeah, so and you've been in the army for a while. So he brings a very eclectic background to the table, strong interest in fintech, AI, and for information, Stamp. My understanding of Stamp is that it leverages AI for accounting, but for like small and medium enterprises, end of year and whatnot accounting. That wizardry, that magic that my accountant charges me a premium to do. So maybe I'll look into that afterwards. But first and foremost, he knows the drill. Everybody knows the drill. It's time for a cabin gossip fact. Jean-Francois, the floor is yours.
Uh, all right. Kevin Gossip fact. So first of all, hi, Captain. Uh, Super happy to
Hi.
be here. It's exciting that we will be discussing AI and how to attract the best talents in the field. So the a fact. A couple of years ago, I was I was traveling in Mexico, and I got bitten by a coral snake. I got paralyzed for 24 hours. My wife was freaked out. I was freaked out. But in the end, everything was it it ended pretty well. I unparalyzed, and I just continued the trip. So all good.
That, did you need to seek medical attention, or did your like in the movies, did your wife had to suck the poison or the venom out of the bite, or what happened? How did you get out of that pickle?
So that's that's even more funny because the we went for a dinner with a couple of friends, and on our way back,
Mm-hmm.
one of our friend and I were like, "Hey, we're gonna go for a beer, just one." And my wife was not, you know, she was like, "Oh no, I don't want to stay alone with the kids. I just want to go to sleep." And I decided with my friend that we would just bring the kids for the beer. And when we came back to the villa, um, there was kind of a homeless dogs, and one of them took one of my son's shoe, right, and just ran and
Okay.
ran, right. And I was I was barefoot, and I just decided to go after the thing. I catch the dog, got the shoe back, came back to the villa, and at some point I was not feeling well. I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And I just fell on the floor. So imagine that. The security guards just found me half like maybe around like 1 a.m. and they knocked on the villa door. And they're like, "Hey, your husband. There's an issue, right?" And my wife thought at first that I just got hammered with the kids, and
Yeah,
which I
for
never
sure.
do,
I mean,
right?
with the
And she was like,
kids.
and she was like, "What's happening?" So she just ran into like the kids' room, and she saw that the kids were in their pitch, sleeping, and then she called our friend, and they were like, "Hey, that's not cool, you got hammered and you had the kids." And my friend was like, no, I don't understand. We only had one drink, one drink. And my wife was like, stop lying for him.
Yeah.
So they brought me inside, put me on the bed, and I stayed like that for 24 hours, and almost 24 hours. And after that, I was feeling like pretty weird, and my wife was mad at me, right? She was super mad. And at some point, I was just, I went to the shower, get out of the shower, and she was like, "Hey, what's on your foot?"
Mhm.
And I had like a bite mark. So I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that could explain it." So then we went to the clinic, and they were like, "Oh no, you got bitten by a snake, and you only have
Yeah.
like two different kind of type of snakes here that could do that, and one of them wouldn't leave that mark, so it's most likely a coral snake." So
So
then my
you
wife, oh
you
yeah,
didn't feel the bite itself, right? So that's the reason.
yeah, because when you run barefoot,
Yeah.
um, like yeah, everything is kind of
Yeah. Everything kind
pinching
of
and
hurts,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. Damn,
yeah,
dude. But of course, I mean, security in Mexico, if they see a gringo lying down, they're by default assume that you're wasted. I mean,
yeah,
it's part of like it's part of what they expect. And yeah, I can imagine the shenanigans that no, it
yeah.
was yeah, good. Well, the good thing is no lasting effect. You didn't develop a phobia of snakes like Indiana Jones or anything like that.
Well, I'm just trying to not run barefoot in countries that I don't know what the animals are, or you know, yeah.
Perfect. No, for sure, man. In Mexico, I've seen kids, like local kids, but still playing with alligators or crocodiles, like
Oh wow. Yeah,
teasing them with sticks, and not in a zoo or anything, like in the swamp. And you need to be careful. I visited a house in Mexico as well, and the realtor, I was on the deck with my arm like this, and he said, "Careful," and he shoved me out of the way, and there was this tiny little spider, and he said, "Dude, you need to be careful. I mean, you just you're
yeah,
you're you're not in Kansas anymore. You're not in Canada anymore. This is a dangerous spider." And I had no idea, man. And so yeah, I mean,
yeah, yeah,
always
yeah. You
always
got to be
pay
careful
attention.
when you don't know
Yeah,
when you
no,
don't
for
know
sure,
what's dangerous
for
in
sure,
certain places of the world. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of getting hammered, this right here is not a sponsor of the Captain's Cabin, but it's alcohol-free beer. I'm a sober pirate, and they're the most dangerous, right? Because they always know what they're doing. You
Yeah.
wouldn't believe the tales, the number of pirates that got caught flat-footed because they were hungover or wasted. I think that's what brought the demise of Blackbeard. The whole crew was hungover, and that's what happened. That's what they performed poorly in the fight that ensued, and he ended up losing his head basically.
Yeah.
Back to the business at end. So stamped. Was I correct in my definition? I'm curious to. I'm always interested in finding ways in which AI can be interesting ways or original ways in which AI can be leveraged to make our lives easier. I hear about Chat GPT left and right and all the time, and I'm getting sick of it. But there are other things, there are other applications, and I'd like you to walk us through what you guys are up to at Stamped.
Yeah, sure. So, when you do your year end, when you have a business,
Mm-hmm.
um, you need to have financial statements. Um, Usually it's just like two sheets. What is the top line? What is the bottom line? But if you have investors, if you have bankers that are going to loan you large amount of money, they're going to ask for what we call financial information assurance. They're going to ask for either an audited statement or a reviewed statement, just to make sure that you didn't lie in your statement to get more money. So usually, especially for companies that are getting to a certain size, It can be super costly because it's all manual processes, and you have to basically look at all the invoices that you received, all the invoices that you sent. You have to make sure that the money really transited through a bank account, that there's also a transaction that has been recorded in the accounting system. And then when you have variations, you need to explain those variations using, what's happening in the sector of activity, right? Um, so it can get very, very costly. One of the things that is pretty nice in the modern days is that we can access a lot of computing power. So we can run those things automatically. We can explain things automatically. We can detect exactly what is on an invoice using OCR, for example, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we can even index what's happening in the news to generate text
Okay.
that are going to explain the variations using, for example, large language models. So you can use a lot of different AI types and techniques
Mhm.
to get to that result and automate a large chunk of the process, which leads
Mhm.
to faster turnarounds
Yeah.
for the audited statement and also way lower costs
Yeah.
for the clients. And another benefit is that in the accounting field or even financial assurance field, you have what,
Mhm.
what we
Mhm.
call the great resignation. Nobody wants to do it anymore because it's boring. So what's happening is that the companies that are doing that um, still have the same number of clients. So they end up charging more and more fees
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you know because of the scarcity of the resources that want to do
Yeah.
that type of job. So AI did arrive just in time to solve that very important
Yeah.
problem.
Agreed. Agreed. And whenever I see projects or products like that use AI to say go through reams of data or automate repetitive tasks or I find it incredibly interesting, and
Yeah.
um, when I get when I get cold feet is when AI is used for creativity, like writing songs and writing books and
Yeah.
writing this and writing that, and then I that's when I lose interest. But I think as a tool, AI is amazing. I'm a headhunter. I've been doing it for about over 10 years, like 13
Yeah.
years now. And from day one, I started in, I think it was 2010. So yeah, 13 years. And from day one, people were telling me, you know, very quickly you'll be replaced by AI, Marty, right? Um, I've lost count of the number of companies that were working on a tool to automate what I do essentially. And I even consulted with some of them to give them my honest opinion as to, okay, so that's supposed to replace me, or let's see how it performs. And 13 years down the line, knock on wood, mind you, but I still haven't been replaced by AI, although there are some solutions out there which some are scarier than other. I mean, I've read about interview booth where basically the candidate steps in a booth and there's a screen with a video and they answer questions and it's like everything is automated,
Yeah.
zero personal touch, right? Um, I maybe I'll be replaced eventually. I think I'll have time to retire before that. But um, are you familiar at all with that use of AI? You've been I guess as in management or as a CTO, you've been involved in recruitment processes. And how do you see AI fitting in there? Have you used it?
Yeah. So I used it in the past to, summarize resumes, detect different skill sets. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that is hard um, in terms of AI applied to the recruitment process is that, and that's why I think you're not going to be replaced for a couple of years at least, is that you, right now we have AI models that can easily extract what you're looking for from the
Yeah.
different resumes, the different LinkedIn profiles. You got pretty good databases that exists where you can even buy that information and buy kind of a pool of candidates and just analyze that and find the right fit in terms
Right.
of hard skills. But the thing is, AI right now cannot tell you how a person is going to react to a group dynamic that is
No.
specific to your own organization with its own culture and the way you work as a company, right? So to just get a feel of that, you need some humans in the process, for sure, for now. And I think it's going to be like that for a couple more years or
Good.
decades. Yeah, you're good.
Good.
You can
Good.
retire as a recruiter, but yeah,
Yeah. I agree. I mean that's been my point of view for the past 10 years,
yeah,
and that's why I'm always happy to participate in those like evaluation of the
yeah,
tools that people are coming up with, because I certainly think that a lot of it can be automated in terms of like, looking for keywords, browsing profiles, and anything like that. But building the relationship, the kind of candidates I work with, or well, any candidate really, you need to build that relationship, and it takes time, and
yeah.
it takes trust, and it takes, um, you know, uh, I don't see a computer doing that just yet, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
I guess in the future, we could have kind of a simulation of the reality where you would have the person in virtual reality working with other persons that can be either an AI or a real person, like another candidate.
mhm,
And I guess that from that, you could have another AI kind of assessing how the person behaves, how the person collaborates. And given that you pre-fed the AI with, the culture that you want to build
mhm,
or that you have in your organization,
mhm,
um, it could detect or make a prediction about the fit of that person in your company. Um, but I think that
yeah,
we're far from that. From that, um, yeah,
yeah. I'm still a firm believer in the human spark, I
yeah,
call it, for lack of a better word. I've seen, nowadays you go on YouTube and you see, well, what if Nirvana jammed with Beethoven with Green Day, by AI,
yeah,
and it sounds, well, in this case it would sound awful, but it generally sounds convincing. Like, this is a brand new Nirvana song, and AI, completely AI. It checks all the boxes, but and maybe that's just me, but it lacks soul. There's something
yes,
missing.
yeah,
It's like it it is, in theory, it's got all the grunge and the distortion and the this and the that and the dark lyrics and it, but there's something missing. you
yeah.
know there's something missing.
One other thing is probably that, as human beings that are conscious, we have innate um, capabilities and behaviors, and we have acquired behaviors
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
capabilities. So a 40 years old kind of human is something that is built from the initial software, but is also a sum of all the life experiences and all the interactions that
Mm-hmm.
that person went through in their entire lives. Um, so AI is not there yet. For example, ChatGPT, it's a transformer approach. A transformer approach is basically super fast to train because you train it on very large data set, yes. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing is,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have any memory and it doesn't have any recurrence in the way that it
Yeah.
processes the content or the request or the stimulus. Um, so it's super fast, but you need to refeed everything every single time in the model, all the interactions that happen.
Yeah.
So at some point, an AI could have enough interaction to have its own personality just with the transformer
Mm-hmm.
approach. And you don't even need to have long short-term memory for that, given that you refeed everything. But given a lifetime of interactions, the model wouldn't be,
Okay.
performant. It would be super slow
Yeah.
because you would need to refeed informations um, that are quite, you know, heavy in terms of
Mm-hmm.
memory, and but it would be doable. But that's where I think that the transformer approach was created to solve the memory issue in the models. But sometime in the future, we will probably have kind of a self-reinforcing model that is gonna modify itself based on the interactions that it had in the past. So it doesn't have to have a huge memory, and it doesn't have
Gotcha.
to have all the interactions refed all the time. So
Gotcha.
that's probably a place where the science is going to go at some point.
So by transformer approach, you mean like taking raw data, analyzing it, and coming up with something, or
Oh,
you
it's
don't mean the robots transforming into semi and 18-wheeler trucks, right?
yeah. So it's more complicated than that. So let me
Okay.
backtrack a bit.
Yeah.
Not sure if you know that, but AI has been around for a long time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that the first commercial neural network was in '59, right?
Wow.
And the
Okay.
purpose of that neural network was to detect the echo in the phone communication happening over sea, right? You had a kind of a
Wow.
feedback echo problem. And maybe you don't know that, but this exact technology is still in use today when you make a phone call over sea, right?
Okay.
So neural networks have been around for a while. And a neural network is um, like most people when they talk about neural networks, they will say deep learning, right? So you have AI, and then you have different types of AI, and deep learning or neural networks or sub-symbolic AI is one type of AI that is very in vogue today, right? A couple of years ago, it was machine learning, which is mostly statistical, and if you go
Yeah.
back 40, 50 years, it was mostly symbolic AI. Um,
Uh-huh.
so given that, at some point, they had bigger and bigger neural networks, and they were like, oh yeah, uh, linear neural networks or one way only uh, doesn't work. So we need to have some memory embedded in it. So that's where you had recurrent neural networks, which is
Hmm.
a type of network that is trained to have different possible situations kind of pre-built in certain
Okay.
layers. So it can have kind of a form of memory, right? And derived from that approach, we had the long short-term memory kind of approach. But the thing with that is once the neural network is trained, it's trained, right?
Hmm.
So to train it for every possible situation makes it pretty hard and pretty slow, right? So that's where in 2017, I think, there's a Google research paper that went out, and that research paper was called "Attention is All You Need." And what the researchers were proposing is a transformer approach. Given that we now have parallel processing, instead of analyzing all the training set, like for example with language models, instead of analyzing word by word sequentially, they were just
Yeah.
analyzing every word with every link that it could have before or after in the text, right?
Okay.
So the parallel processing allowed that transformer approach, and
Yeah.
that's all that it is. A transformer can be run in parallel on everything, right? So you speed up the training of the models, and it allows you
Gotcha.
to train the models on very, very large training sets. So that's why we say large models, right? It's using the transformer approach. Um, for example, ChatGPT,
Okay.
GPT stands for generative pre-trained transformer.
Okay.
So it's
There's
very
the
technical term.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha. All right. Got
yeah.
it.
So
Got
just
it.
making use of parallel processing to, train models on
Yeah.
way larger data sets that weren't that, and it was not possible before that. Yeah,
I would go so far as to say that Web 3.0 is ChatGPT and AI rather than the decentralization blockchain thing that has, you know, was supposed to be a revolution for 10 years now.
yeah. I think that people see it as an evolution, but I think it's more than that. The you know we're living in a time where AI is now a commodity, where we have processing power and techniques that allows you to process a lot more information than even the brain can process, right? So I see it more as a revolution right now than an evolution. And I never said that before. You had some breakthroughs, but this is not a breakthrough. This is literally probably the first building block towards an artificial general intelligence. Because now we have pretty much everything, right? We have um, perceptual models that can see, that can detect things visually,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
have models that can understand and have emotions. We have neural networks that can generate things, be creative. And we also have large models that are conversational in nature that can
Yeah.
use those inputs and then either discuss those inputs with you or even form its own opinion. So we're hearing more and more about, yes, large language models, but the next step is going to be large action models where, an AI
Okay.
is going to be able to tell you exactly what you need to do to get to a certain goal. And that AI model could even have its own goals, right? And it will know how to reach those goals, right? So that can be a bit scary if there is no safeguards in place.
Yeah.
But I think we are. This was the first block to get there to what we call AGI.
Gotcha. But what you're saying is that AI could have its own volition. It could have its own. Could it be conscious of itself?
How do you define conscience?
Um, I define, well, if you take animals and human beings, I think uh, the difference, one of the differences is that there's there's I call consciousness like the passive observer. Like you're conscious of being. I'm conscious of being Marty, right? And I'm conscious of I can tell that I'm angry from like almost like an outside observer from that perspective. Like if you're very self-aware, you become conscious of you know yourself, I guess. Animals are reactive. I mean, they're angry, they're hungry, they pursue survival, but they're not. I don't think they're conscious of being like individuals.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, there is no good or bad definition to that. If you read some papers, they tend to differentiate between the consciousness and the experience part. So
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the information theory of consciousness, it's conscience is only a mechanism to process information, right? Just like a brain. And that information processing is based on your innate capacities, and let's say your operating system, right? And then the other part is
Mm-hmm.
based on all the experiences and interactions you had in the past, like we mentioned before. But what you describe is the experience problem. Why do you know that you are there in, this time, this
Well,
space,
yeah.
having those discussions? So why are you aware of it? That's another question, right? I think that any explanation would be philosophical in nature in that regard.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and could we argue that the brain is only a collection of neurons, and given that a computer
yeah,
could have the same number of neurons and
yeah,
more, um,
yeah.
and rewire the networks that are kind of configured between those neurons, could we argue that, for example, a model, given that it would have even more parameters than the human brain, could we argue that
Hmm.
this model is self-aware to a certain extent, right? But it's it's a tough question. What is conscience? What is
Yeah,
experience, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
there
But
is,
there are
yeah,
debates all around between, it's between philosophers and more spiritual inclined
yeah,
individuals and neuroscientists, and it it's an ongoing
yeah,
debate. I know that when I hear about this luminary Elon Musk, I think it was him that talking about like he's going to at some point he thinks we'll be able to, or he's going to be able, because obviously he wants to live forever. Download his brain into a quantum computer or whatnot. Uh, I truly believe this is not going to happen. I don't want him to. I don't want to tell him, not that he would listen, but I think this is never going to be possible. I think there's more, and I'll posit, and that's a spiritual part of me, I guess, but that's more to the human being than the brain. But yeah, then we get into
yeah,
hardcore philosophy, right?
yeah,
Don't we? So good luck, Mr. Musk, but I don't think it's gonna work.
yeah.
Um,
It's hard questions that we will probably never have an answer for. Even if we create an AI that is undistinguishable from a human being. Um, how human is this AI, right? But the interesting part to that is it forces us to question our own humanity. What makes us human? We
yeah,
used to think that it was
100%,
intelligence, but now that we can,
100%, yeah,
we're on the verge of building AGI models that are going to be more intelligent
yeah,
than a human being, so and even more creative.
yeah,
So what makes us humans?
yeah.
That forces us to
That's true.
question that.
Good.
Yeah, but AI evolved a lot in the last 15, 20 years, and it just, the pace of innovation is just getting faster and faster. Uh, for example, when I first worked in AI, I was doing research with the RDC in Quebec at le Centre de Recherche de Valcartier. I was
Hmm.
contributing to
Hmm.
research where we were trying to build an AI that was anticipating better than a human being. And at first we thought, what is anticipation, right? And we kind of discovered that it was only kind of logical relations that were pre-wired in the brain, right? That's all it is. So anticipation is based on your past experience, and
Hmm.
it's going to make kind of a quick call based on what you think is going to happen. Um, so we did succeed. We had an AI that was way better than any human being to anticipate, but it was pretty hard to do. It took a lot of research. It took biologists. It took computer scientists. It took psychologists to just get to that point, and years of
Yeah,
research. And then I joined Coveo, and you had that machine learning kind of statistical AI trend that was barely starting, and we had to build everything from the start. Um, we didn't have those amazing Python libraries that we can use today. AI was not a commodity yet,
yeah.
and now you have AI is a commodity. Like anyone at home could just
Hmm.
look at a data set, find the right features,
Hmm.
and train a model in a matter of
Hmm.
minutes. So things have changed quite a lot in the AI field. Um, and that's where, when when you're in an organization, you have to kind of decide, do you want to be an innovator, or do you just want to use those commodities? And that's going
Yeah.
to be two different things.
Sure.
One is going to be applied research, or maybe even fundamental research, and the other one is going to be just using the tools that are pre-built
Hmm.
today to do those things, and that are,
Yeah,
you
kind of
know,
like what Stamp does, right? They use the tools and they apply it to a very specific use case.
yes, yes,
And I think there's ample room to just scratch the
yeah,
surface, yeah, of all the things that can be done
yes. We use
like
very
that. You know,
specialized models
there's
that are,
specific applications.
yeah, pre-built for that,
Yeah,
and then we retrain them, or we tune the hyperparameters, and we make them relevant for STEM. But
yeah,
it's basically just using commodities, you know.
yeah,
Um, as for OpenAI, they literally did fundamental research and then applied research and then
yeah,
product, and then their product is
yeah,
becoming a commodity super fast.
yeah.
Everybody,
It's ubiquitous
yeah.
now.
So
Yeah.
everybody uses ChatGPT nowadays, and
So what's your process for rounding up the best and the brightest talent in AI, or any tips and techniques you care to share?
yeah. So we touched it a bit, but I think it depends if your organization is an organization that wants to use AI as a commodity. Um, in that case, you probably need to have people that are, very good at integrating existing models or training models using like very well-known, proven techniques, or even tune, bugging face models for your own organization. Um, so if it's a commodity thing, what you want is people that are very skilled in using the tools that are accessible right now to build those AI applications, right? Um, so the recruiting process is probably going to be way more like an engineer, software engineer. You're going to ask,
Hmm.
for example, a specific problem. You're going to ask for a solution, maybe even a take-home kind of assignment, and then you're going to look at the code. You're going to look how it's been integrated. You want people that, like engineers, can just apply, well-known,
Yeah.
proven techniques to a certain problem, and make it strong and make it fast. If you want to innovate more than that, you're probably looking at a whole different type of individual. You probably want to hire people that have a lot of creativity, that like to go, off the beaten path. Um, People that will want a lot of freedom and autonomy in their work, and will want free time
Yeah.
to read research, and and take it and use that free time to think about how this fundamental research could be applied to a certain
Yeah.
problem that we have and we don't have
Yeah.
any solution yet. Um, so that's probably the two different skill sets that you want to have,
Yeah.
um, depending what your organization is doing. And sometimes you have two different teams that are going to do both, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
going to start with applied research, and then it's going to become more of a commodity once it's built, right?
Yeah.
Um, and
Right.
I think another thing is the cultural fit. What kind of company are you trying to
Hmm.
build, and is this person, you know, fitting into that culture that you're trying to
Yeah.
build? Because even if you hire um, someone that have a high potential for innovation and creation,
Hmm. Hmm.
if the person is not happy, that's not going to work, right? So
No,
you
you're
need to
right.
fit in the culture, to make sure the brain
Yeah.
is in a state where those innovations can happen. Um, and we often like forget that we work with humans, and those humans are more creative, more innovative
Hmm.
when they're happy, and when they have other colleagues that are that have the same
Yeah,
mindset, but not the same skill set. Way different.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why, I mean, and that's not just for AI, but just
No.
any position that, I recruit for, the culture fit is, something that's taken into consideration from the first touch point, right? And certainly one of the things that I do when, working with a new client is really understand what the culture is, what kind of profile would thrive in that
Yeah.
environment, um, and be able to then, target people, discuss with people, and see and be very authentic and transparent about it. Is this going to be a fit? And the longer I work with any given client, the more I can, I get to know it very well. And then I talk to someone, I'm like, that someone will thrive in that environment. That other person who is not bad. There's nothing wrong with he or she, but
Yep.
would be better in a different company, right? Um, Especially with startups and smaller outfits where it's very easy to tilt things out of balance if you had in, you're talking about like someone not giving the best of themselves because the fit is not great, but they can also
Yes.
tilt the others in the wrong
Yep.
in the wrong direction as well.
But
So
but that's more a process, and
um,
to get the best resources, you should never be shy to go in conferences, to go in AI events,
mhm,
even network with
yeah,
um, the thought leaders in that field. If you see someone that is always publishing pretty good research that is driving, some areas of AI, it's totally okay to just contact that person and ask, hey, we're looking for someone that is,
yeah,
you know, interested in
yeah,
that field. Can you help us? Because that person is probably getting a lot of questions from a lot of different people interested in that
yeah,
research, and and
yeah,
using those researchers to target like the next superstar in that
yeah,
field is something that
yeah,
works.
true.
Or things like when I was at Coveo, and they still do it today. We were having uh, it's called Coveo Blitz, and it's basically just an AI competition once a year. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to use AI. You have to have robots competing against other robots, kind of thing. And you can use AI, you can
Mm-hmm.
use rules, you can use um, just a random behavior for robots. Well, somebody did that at some point, and they literally they almost won. Like, so
Oh, did they?
yeah, so sometimes just a random behavior can work.
Uh, but to circle back to your hiring tips, I would venture that it's easier to hire for the more like the
Yes.
commodity slash engineer
Yeah.
profile than the research one, right?
Yeah, it's way
Yeah,
easier.
that
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
uh, that's what I had
Yeah,
figured.
way easier. And
It's way
even
easier.
software
Yeah,
engineers right
that
now, they
makes
can be
sense.
just trained to use AI as a commodity. And it's not even hard.
Hmm.
You just need
Yeah,
to know what type of AI, what type of models, what type of even
right,
regressions when you use statistical AI to use for different types of problems. And then you need to be able to figure out what are the right features to use as inputs in those models.
right.
And then you can train, and that's
Gotcha.
pretty easy to just,
Yeah,
especially when you have a data set with the actual outcome that you're trying to predict,
yeah,
to build something um,
right.
super fast, like in a very short amount of time.
Um, Thank you, Jean-Francois, for taking the time today to talk. Greatly appreciated. I'm always delighted to exchange, to have that kind of exchange with smart people like you. So greatly appreciate it. And I don't know if you have any last words for this episode, parting
Yep,
words.
thanks a lot, Marty, for that opportunity to be on your podcast. And um, yeah, let's keep in touch. And if people just want to discuss those topics, they can always just contact me on LinkedIn or yeah. That's the only social network that I use, so only LinkedIn. But yeah.